So what both men shared was the pleasure of a German Jewish enlightenment. Berthold Auerbach the Younger was perhaps Germany's most important theatre agent of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, yet he's hardly known today in Germany or in Britain. He was born in 1874, died in 1960 at the age of 86, and was buried in an Anglican cemetery in Bath. I searched high and low for him and could find no image of him. And this is not surprising, as he enjoyed not being in the limelight. His goal was to celebrate the talents of others. However, I believe that he is an important figure in the brilliant German theatre of the early 20th century, and am in this talk suggesting that Auerbach's achievements need to be remembered. A brief history. The school reports show that he was never late, and he was excellent in his studies. He may have been steeped in the classical learning of the gymnasium, but the major point of interest to this exploration of his archive is that he had no English. The point is important, because once he was forced to start a new life in England, the lack of language, added to his age, meant that he was doubly isolated. A friend of his daughter's remembers singing O Tannenbaum to the elderly Auerbach because he spoke no English. Auerbach was a Berliner, and he lived there from the age of 11. His first job was at 17. He trained in commerce with Albert Mayer and stayed with Mayer until he was 23. Hilda, his daughter, in an interview, spoke of how he disliked the world of finance and how much his life improved when in 1898 he joined the Literarische Gesellschaft. This association of playwrights, publishers, and novelists was created in 1895 in Leipzig. Among the leaders was Dr. Karl Heine, another non-Jewish Jew. His name dominates Auerbach's early career. Auerbach was Heine's secretary, his treasurer, and he acted in his productions. The Gesellschaft was Auerbach's literary apprenticeship and the portal to his future as a theatre agent. But he was much more than an actor's representative. He was also a writer, a critic, and a networker. Auerbach learned his craft through his 3 years apprenticeship with Heine, who was a director, producer, and practitioner. You see, everybody's doing multiple jobs. Heine championed Henrik Ibsen, August Strindberg, and others, most particularly the controversial playwright Frank Wedekind. And later in this talk, I shall explore this connection. As a young man, Auerbach was in the right place at the right time. The period of work with Heine underpinned his 36-year career as a theatre agent. Heine gave Auerbach a methodology based in action. He learned to seize the opportunities arising in German theatre. For example, at the Karl Schlutzer Theater in Hamburg on the 13th of April, 1898, Heine directed Ibsen's Woman from the Sea. At this time, Ibsen was hardly known in Germany. Heine also directed Rosmersholm, A Doll's House, Ghosts, The Wild Duck, Heather Gabler, and An Enemy of the People. This love of Ibsen prompted him to call his company Dr. Karl Heine's Ibsen Theatre. Ibsen was a radical playwright who dramatized taboo subjects such as sex, death, syphilis, and the rise of the new woman. His effect on German theatre was enormous. Auerbach was witness to this radical new wave. Heine traveled to seek out new talent. Auerbach, when he became an agent, did the same. I must talk about the importance of the Berliner Freibühne, the Berlin Free Stage, in relation to Heine and Auerbach. Founded in 1889, it was a subscribers' club theatre devoted to new works by Gerhard Hauptmann, Henrik Ibsen, August Strindberg, and stage adaptations of novels by Emil Zola and Leo Tolstoy. 10 members, supervised by Otto Brahm, another non-Jewish Jew, made it a kind of collective. It all fell out, of course, and it collapsed in 1894 after 3 seasons. Why was the Freibühne so important? I believe this was because it gave a stamp of approval to the new, rule-breaking, radical dramatists entering the German-speaking theatre sphere. This meant the largest state theatres programmed these provocative dramas that the Freibühne made public. Those were naturalistic, but one outstanding expressionist work is my focus, as it informs us how Auerbach was influenced by Frank Wedekind, and he supported Wedekind's dramas, and also one of his daughters, the actor Pamela Wedekind. In his 1898 article, Frühlingsgewitter über Leipzig, Spring Thunderstorm over Leipzig, Auerbach gives a vivid description of how Frank Wedekind joined the ensemble and how it came about that Wedekind added a prologue to Erdgeist, Earth Spirit, which was premiered in Dr. Karl Heine's Ibsen's theatre final season. Rather like Heine and Auerbach, Wedekind was a polymath. He was known to the company as a poet, actor, and dramaturgical secretary. He also played the part of Dr. Schön in Erdgeist under the name of Heinrich Kammerer. Writing about Lulu for the Library of Congress, Laurie Jean Reinhardt makes the point that adding Der Erdgeist to the tour schedule was a bold and risky adventure. At best, the play provided an uneasy counterpoint to the naturalistic works of Ibsen, and indeed, Ibsen and Wedekind seem very strange bedfellows. Reinhardt notices that Wedekind's original Lulu drama, originally part of a 5-act play entitled Die Buchse der Pandora, Pandora's Box, had initially been rejected by the Leipzig publisher Albert Langen as too controversial. The version, ultimately published by Langen and premiered by the Ibsen Theatre, was revised and condensed into 4 acts. There was a new 3rd act, which left out the sensational 5th act, where Lulu is murdered by Jack the Ripper. Even with these changes, the play had been rejected for public performances by Otto Brahms' Progressive Freibühne after a series of private readings in Berlin. Reinhardt tells us that it was Wedekind's pestering that ensured it was staged by Dr. Heine. Heine told Wedekind that the play needed a prologue. Hilda Auerbach's daughter gives a vivid picture of how this came about. She writes about the stock poster, which you'll see here. My father's story of how Wedekind came to write this prologue is as follows. Just before the first performance of Erdgeist, Dr. Heine, Wedekind, and my father were sitting in a cafe in Vienna, and Dr. Heine remarked to Wedekind that the Vienna public would not understand his play without a prologue. There and then, Wedekind snatched the huge poster of the Ibsen Theatre from my father. On the back of it, Wedekind wrote in one go, leaning on the cafe house table, the first version of his famous prologue to the Lulu tragedy. He spoke it himself in the first night of the play because he himself played the part of the circus director, and my father, that's Auerbach, was fond of imitating him as he stood before the curtain, pistol in hand, whip in the other, speaking the words of the prologue with his harsh voice, rolling his R's, and suddenly firing his pistol in the air, thus frightening the ladies. His sense of circus came from traveling circuses that toured Europe, but also through Wedekind's own curiosity of other Lulus in theatre history. In Paris, in 1892, Wedekind saw Félicien Champsaur's 1-act Lulu. He was influenced by Champsaur's pantomime Lulu, but Wedekind took her essence and made her travel on a different journey, which was aimed at sabotaging hypocritical, bourgeois German society. Wedekind's Lulu is first seen as a caged animal. The ringmaster delivers this prologue. Ryan will read the original German, which is written on the back of the poster, and it starts with the traditional roll up, welcome to the audience, where the actors are all caged. This sets the tone for a brutal philosophy where humans are merely beasts with no moral compass. They are ready to murder to get what they want. This life is dog eat dog. Life is not a cabaret, old chum, but a circus where a man with a whip will get you if you leave your cage. If you don't understand German, the sound will give you the aesthetic of Wedekind's brutal theatre.
Herein in die Menagerie, ihr tapferen Herren, ihr lebenslustigen Frauen, mit heißer Wollust und mit süßem Grauen, die miselige Kreatur zu schauen, schlende ich durch das menschliche Genie. Hereinspaziert, die Vorstellung beginnt. Auf 2 Personen kommt immerhin ein Kind. Hier kommen Mensch und Tier in engen Hütten, wo dieser seine Peitsche höhnend schwingt und jenes mit Gebrüll wie Angstschreier dem Menschen mörderisch an die Kehle springt. Wobei der Starke, weil der Kluge siegt, bald Tier, bald Mensch, geduckt am Erdboden liegt. Und geht das Tier, der Mensch, auf allen Vieren, ein eiskalter Herrscherblick. Die Blicke senkt er, entlarvt das Genick und lässt sich fromm die Ferse drauf justieren. Schlecht sind die Gäste, all die Herren und Damen, die einst vor meinem Käfig sich geschart, begehrten Oper, Posse, Drama mit ihrer hochgespannten Gegenwart. Für meine Beinarbeit fehlt mir das Fräulein, hat ein Tonverein, nicht Fälscherverein, mir hin und wieder die Schwiegermutter nächtlicherweise in den Sprung geführt? Ja, welch ein Abstand zwischen dem Theater und der Menagerie im Wiener Prater!
Yeah, that gives you the atmosphere. Oh, very British. So now we have an image from the production of Lulu by Peter Barnes, which started in Nottingham in 1970, moved to the Royal Court in 1771 before a West End run at the Apollo Theatre from January to March that year. This was the first production of a play by Wedekind on the English stage, and it took 76 years to get there. Let's get back to Berthold Auerbach. When Dr. Karl Hart's Ibsen Theatre folded, Auerbach started his employment with the theatre agency E. Drenker and Company in 1898. The director was Karl Harder. In 1907, at the age of 33, Auerbach married Anna Pergams. They had 2 sons and a daughter. In 1915, he was called up to fight in World War I. He was 42. Army recruit Berthold Auerbach was posted to Königsberg, where Leopold Gesner, director of the State Theatre, Neues Schauspielhaus, the new theatre, gave him free tickets for all performances. This is an image of actors who were also soldiers, rather like British Ensign, I think. And then here is a letter from addressed to Corporal Auerbach from yes, another theatre manager.
During my stay in Berlin, I often spoke about you in your company's office and have been awaiting your valuable letter. My house is your house. It goes without saying that your office and auditorium will be open to you at any time starting Monday.
Auerbach never served on the German front. His employer Drenker secured his release from the army, and he stayed with him until 1919, agency closed. At this point, the state founded an official agency for stage and film, which represented the union of actors and directors. Auerbach was on the payroll until 1933, when he was dismissed after an SA raid. The problem for German theatre was that Auerbach was indispensable. His accumulated knowledge meant that he knew theatre directors in producing houses all over Germany, parts of Switzerland and Austria. Auerbach understood what they needed for their ensemble and where to find the performers for particular roles. The union re-employed him 4 times for short periods. This was after Hitler's election in 1933, until Goebbels put a stop to it. As we have very few of Auerbach's own letters in the archive, what we have is a great deal of correspondence from others who supported him. They came from theatre directors in Berlin, Leipzig, Freiburg, Bielefeld, Bremen, Kassel, Trier, Bochum, Duisburg, and Köln. He could never have known that many of his supporters, or those he supported, would later endorse the Third Reich. Director Heinz Hilpert at Theater am Horst-Wessel-Platz in Lünen is an example. Hilpert, who was considered only second to Max Reinhardt, remained in post during the Nazi period. The second important name was Karl Böhm, director of the State Theatre in Freiburg. Karl Böhm wrote on the 2nd of February 1934,
"Dear Mr. Auerbach, I am pleased to fulfill your request and confirm that I have always enjoyed working with you as the theatre's drama scheduler of the stage register, as I have come to know and appreciate your great knowledge of the personnel, your sound judgment, and your unconditional reliability. With German greetings and Heil Hitler."
certain irony there. Karl Böhm, who was an Austrian-born theatre manager and a conductor, enjoyed a career that flourished during the Nazi years. Critics maintain that his rise was gained as Jewish musicians were pushed out of their jobs, murdered, or forced to leave. A third example of betrayal by a fellow artist is from the actor Emil Jannings. A letter from Jannings in 1930 states that he is too busy for an engagement suggested by Auerbach because he is about to make a major sound film in Berlin. I say major sound film, 1930 is the point when movies have sound. So in 1930, I came across films that were silent and some that had sound. It's a very interesting point. And Jannings may be referring to the Blue Angel, I shall discuss later. A second letter in 1934 is one of support to get Auerbach reinstated. But of course, the many endorsements supporting Auerbach were useless. Auerbach may have been a non-Jewish Jew, but he was always a Jew in a Nazi Germany. He was unemployed from 1934 to 1939 when he fled to join Hilda, his daughter, in England. 2 sons remained in Germany. Bertold and Anna Auerbach were interned as enemy aliens on the Isle of Man, before spending the rest of their lives in Godalming and Bath. Auerbach found no English stage to welcome him. Post-war English theatre was not interested in German theatre practitioners unless they absorbed themselves into the British cultural wave. There were other German and European refugees who did enter theatre, but they were much younger. They include the actors Hannah Norbert and Martin Miller, whose fund has supported this presentation, the translator and critic Martin Esslin, actors Lily Kahn, Andrew Sachs from Fawlty Towers, the actor, director, and writer Otto Tausig, the actor-producer René Goddard, theatre director Peter Zadek, choreographer and dancer Kurt Joos, dancer, choreographer, teacher Hilda Holger, and the novelist Judith Kerr, author of When Hitler Stole a White Rabbit. Her father, theatre critic Alfred Kerr, who was closer to Auerbach's age, was also isolated from the mainstream. I said before Auerbach was doubly isolated. Actually, I think he was triply isolated. Firstly, by his lack of English. Secondly, by living in provincial England. And finally, by age. Plus, being German at the time of anti-German feeling also did not help. Auerbach was 71 at the end of the war. Between 1945 and his death in 1960 at the age of 85, he was, however, still connecting to old friends and colleagues. But it was too late to go back. Germany had utterly changed. Although he was invited to return in 1945, he decided against it. However, in 1951, he traveled to Berlin and Dusseldorf and was warmly received by the theatre establishment. But by then, many of his colleagues were dead, murdered, exiled, or had been Nazi collaborators. However, this is not utterly pessimistic. The exploration of Auerbach's life and cultural universe does expose, that in a small way, elements of this dynamic German theatre world have seeped into mainstream entertainment, but in a slightly different form. These elements can be seen in Cabaret, the 1972 Hollywood movie inspired by Harold Prince's 1966 Broadway musical. America enjoyed the wildness of German pre-war theatre, and Cabaret was a success in London in 1993 and 2021. Even today, it can be seen in the West End at the Playhouse as Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club. But British theatres have always been more interested in the naturalism of Ibsen than the savage humour of Wedekind or Brecht. In fact, English-speaking theatre, when it felt itself to be the most avant-garde, was, in comparison to Auerbach's world, most conservative. As mentioned earlier, Wedekind's work, Lulu, was not presented in England until 1970. This was after the censor was abolished by the Theatre Act of 1968. It took another 6 years before the London premiere of Wedekind's earlier play, Spring Awakening, was seen at the National Theatre at the Old Vic. I said that English theatre was conservative. In 1956, John Osborne's play, Look Back in Anger, was hailed as groundbreaking British theatre. Osborne's misogynistic protagonist, Jimmy Porter, was applauded as the new man for a new Britain. Jimmy Porter wailed,
"There are no more causes to fight for,"
while his wife's on-stage presence was that of the woman continually winning. This was 1956. In 1892, Wedekind's Lulu was certainly not doing her husband's lawn. Both German pre-war and British post-war dominant stage productions were dominated by male authors. But Auerbach's constellation of dramatists explored new visions of female characters on stage. Lulu, which inspired Alban Berg's opera and the movie by G.W. Pabst, is perhaps the most iconic. Wedekind's theatre was one of high stakes. It was epic and international. Auerbach's promotion of Wedekind needs to be honored. This is Pamela Wedekind, who shows how important Auerbach was to Wedekind's rise. 37 Boulevard de Waterloo, Hotel Regent, Brussels, January the 21st, 1932. Dear Mr. Auerbach, you have given me great joy. Many thanks to you. Can it be a person who remembers my beginnings after years writes to me in old-fashioned Wedekind loyalty? I am stunned with pleasure. Now I can and will no longer believe in the imminent collapse of my homeland, the rest of the world. After you managed to celebrate a joyful evening with me here in Königsberg, and as always, you praise your Wedekind work. Oh yes, I would also like to work again. But what? Where? Many heartfelt greetings from your mother. On a postcard in 1938, she writes, "Oh, dear, dear Mr. Auerbach, you have written to me so very often. Many thanks for your words and your high opinion of me, which I hope to be able to justify one day. So often I thought of you and how unfortunate it is that you cannot dedicate your good humor, enthusiasm, and understanding to today's theatre in an active way. Wishing you all the best for 1938. Thinking of you from the bottom of my heart and for the trust you had in me as you guided my first steps in the theatre, who was always my loving advisor. You are still very valuable to me today, and I thank you for that." It is perhaps only today, as we examine early 20th century film and theatre, that we can understand how to place Auerbach's work and this archive. It exists within a German creative explosion. This expressed rebellion and a horror of the military and of sexual repression. But there was a contradiction. Both the hatred of Jews and an interest in them was manifest in cinema and theatre. Prime example of the banality of anti-Semitic tropes can be seen in Friedrich Wilhelm's 1915 film Nosferatu. Maury Harabin's paper, racially profiled Vampires in Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau's Nosferatu, alludes to the vampire's huge nose, a prosthesis, and large ears, which fulfills Jewish stereotyping. In contrast, and also shot in 1915, is Paul Wegener's Der Golem, co-written with Jewish writer Henrik Gahlin. This shows a deep interest in Jewish myths and is radical in its vision of medieval Jewish experience. There were other areas of dramaturgy where Jewish stereotypes were challenged. Auerbach witnessed Max Reinhardt's famous production of The Merchant of Venice. Max Reinhardt, like Auerbach, was a non-Jewish Jew. He was born in Austria on the 9th of September, 1873, as Maximilian Goldman. There were only 11 years between Reinhardt and Auerbach. Reinhardt was a star. Auerbach was one of the backroom agents who facilitated the machinery of his creative networks. Both non-Jewish Jews were forced to get out of Germany. Reinhardt got to the US, Auerbach to England. What is it about Reinhardt that made him so important? We have no film recordings of his productions and must rely on testimony. In his archive, Auerbach refers to Reinhardt's 1934 production of The Merchant of Venice. Malkin's book, Jews and the Making of Modern German Theatre, contains a chapter by Professor Erika Fischer-Lichts, which helps me to understand the effect of Reinhardt's reading of this difficult comedy, as Shakespeare called it. He writes, "The nationalist critics hated Schildkraut's performance as Shylock because Reinhardt's vision was not to present a stereotype, but to show a man persecuted within a historical context and to humanize the Jew." One review reveals how Reinhardt adds textless scenes, for example, where the grief-filled father, Shylock, runs through the empty house in search of his beloved daughter, Jessica, or as the rebel Jew who speaks the Shema at his conversion. Reinhardt was criticized by the nationalist critics for forging this malicious, insidious, vindictive, haggling Jew into a martyr, a rhetorical defender of trampled human rights. They claim, this is the Nazi critics, that this served no other purpose than the political one of using Shakespeare as a champion for philo-Semitism. It has no aesthetic significance. Never trust a critic. What Fischer-Lichts is describing is Reinhardt's presentation of a Jewish sensibility of Shakespeare's text. Reinhardt had the chutzpah to vilify an anti-Semitic Venetian society and give it meaning in Hitler's Germany. The theatre that Hitler despised was not only sympathetic to Jews, it also foregrounded the new woman. For Wedekind, she is Lulu, the dancer, and here we have Louise Brooks. For Heinrich Mann, in his 1905 novel, Professor Unrat, the source of Josef von Sternberg's 1930 The Blue Angel, she undermines prudish sexual values. Lulu is a dancer. Lola is a singer. I find that a very interesting exploration of those two iconic characters. Both were conventionally women on the margins of society, and normally in opera, in theatre, women who transgress end up dead. Question is, was Wedekind's Lulu destroyed by her amorality and love of danger? Or was she just unlucky for being in the wrong place at the wrong time? Critical opinion varies. What is important to understand at this moment in theatre history is the change in the vision of a transgressive woman. Lulu dies, but Lola does not. Both these major works are the result of the intersection between German Jewish and German Gentile creativity. Mann was not Jewish. Karl Zuckmayer, screenwriter of The Blue Angel, had a Jewish grandmother but was not Jewish. The film's director, Josef von Sternberg, was born into a Viennese Orthodox Jewish family as Jonas Sternberg. Austrian-born George William Pabst, who filmed Lulu, was not Jewish. Although family histories and religions had been different, there was a fusion, inspiration, and imagination. All shared the same German culture and language and created radical new forms. Auerbach's archive exposes the fruitfulness of this exciting Mischling energy. It promoted so many careers. When he saw Emil Jannings playing the lead with Marlene Dietrich in The Blue Angel, he must have been aware of his own influence in celebrating Jannings. But Auerbach could never have imagined that Jannings would use his creativity to support Hitler's propaganda machine. Jannings had written to Auerbach on the 7th of February 1934 a letter praising his valuable work.
I am happy to confirm that I have known you intimately for 20 years. In your capacity as a theatre agent and as a representative of the Theatre Association. And I am aware of the fruitful work you have accomplished during this time. Your comprehensive knowledge of personnel, your extensive knowledge of theatre, and last but not least, your tremendous work ethic have been a blessing for both the actors and the stage.
Jannings' work is into the world of Faust. He played Mephistopheles in Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau's Mephisto, and in real life, Jannings could be said to have made a Faustian film. Martin Chilton, writing about Jannings in The Independent in February 2025, relates how Jannings campaigned for Hitler in the 1938 elections, which were the final ones for the Reichstag during Nazi rule. This loyalty earned him a lavish lifestyle and career advancement. Goebbels gave Jannings overall artistic control of the state studio production company Tobis. His first project was to produce and act in a biopic about the German microbiologist Robert Koch, who experimented on colonial African subjects. In the 1981 film Mephisto, Hungarian filmmaker Ivan Szabo sets it in the prelude to the Third Reich. The actor Hendrik Höfgen, played by Klaus Maria Brandauer, opportunistically switches his politics from communism to Nazism. Critics have suggested that Jannings is the inspiration for the movie. It can be imagined how Auerbach must have felt on learning about Jannings' work for Hitler. However, post-war writings reveal no bitterness. Rather, he remains in positive contact with creatives within his earlier networks. For example, there are 3 letters written in 1954 where he asks Karl Ebert, Glyndebourne's artistic director, to audition the singer Dorothea Schmidt-Harder. Auerbach was also a keen writer for the periodical Theater der Zeit, and there are 3 published articles on theatre practice between 1943 and 1947. What is interesting within this archive at this point is a typescript, including a memorial for Stefan Zweig on his 62nd birthday. And this was written a year after Zweig's death in exile in 1942. Here, Auerbach discusses Zweig's Jeremias, a 1917 pacifist play.
It has now been almost 2 years since Stefan Zweig, together with his brave young partner, chose to end his life voluntarily in South America. On Sunday, the 28th of November, he would have celebrated his 62nd birthday.
Auerbach calls Zweig one of the last humanists. He refers to Zweig's biography, The World of Yesterday.
Stefan Zweig did not see the Jewish fate as an isolated individual destiny, but as the eternal great confrontation between the tyranny of worldly power and the spirit of the free individual. Jeremias must see his people defeated, but the lost people transforms into immortal spirit. Man kann Menschen töten, aber nicht den Geist, der in ihnen lebt.
Auerbach quotes Zweig and is perhaps referring to the fate of Germany's Jews. You can kill people, but you can't kill the spirit that lives within. Auerbach also draws threads between Zweig and Wedekind. He does this by referring to Zweig's criticism of female sexual exploitation. In his biography, Zweig describes brothels. Wedekind dramatizes one in Lulu to critique male bourgeois society. Zweig writes, "There were secret doors and special staircases up which members of the very highest society, even it was rumored gentlemen from the court, could visit these places unseen by other mortals. And it was the same society, the same morality that expressed horror if young girls rode bicycles." The same world that so emotionally defended the purity of woman tolerated this horrifying trade in female bodies, organized it, and even profited by it. To end this talk, I would like to pull together some threads in the broken fabric of Auerbach's life. He kept faith by remembering the intellectual nourishment he gained as a young man and the friendships that remained loyal and supportive. It is his address to honor the memory of the actor Helena Richards, which gives us a sense of the humor and personality of the man for whom we have no face, and a theater animal who had, at the end of his life, no stage. This is Helena Richards. This is what Auerbach wrote for Richards' 65th stage anniversary. It was, in fact, read out at a funeral on behalf of Auerbach, who was not strong enough to attend.
Very dear and esteemed people present, for this extraordinary and rare celebration, I came all the way from England and swam across the channel, because I have the right to say that I am one of our oldest friends. Far, far in the past, almost a whole human life ago, is how far back go my memories of everything that is linked to the name Helene Richards. In 1895, when I was bound to a job that was forced on me at a trucking delivery company in Leipzig, the boss was always grumbling and shouting like a wild animal. He was called the Tiger, and indeed that was the company's logo. Back then, something like salvation happened. The courageous Dr. Karl Heine broke this ghastly Leipzig theater scene when he founded his literary society, from which the Ibsen theater emerged, and which was a cultural gift to Germany's major cities. But it started in Leipzig, with Gerhard Hauptmann's Das Friedensfest, the Peace Festival. The second production was Amalie Skram's Nordic drama, and within the cast was a striking actress with a strong profile leaning against an armchair, who made some biting remarks which was rarely seen or heard on the stage at that time. Naturally, I read the program and saw that her name was an unknown, Helene Richards.
Auerbach describes her performance in Rosmersholm and how the Leipziger Volkszeitung praised Richards' talents and announced her brilliant future career. Auerbach describes the start of their relationship.
One day, I found a newspaper advertisement that read,
"Acting lessons from Helene Richards, 22 Emilienstraße."
That was like a sign to me. I had got on so many friends and family's nerves with my acting ambitions, but I answered this ad without any serious intention to go on stage. But the opportunity to be close to this great and adored artist, that was more than worth it. I had believed since my childhood that great artists are not earthly beings.
You can't just go to the restaurant after a show and eat
Weißbein mit Sauerkraut.
pork knuckle with sauerkraut.
After playing in a great classic, I believed that they would float away on some silver cloud into the ether. But Helene Richards, she welcomed me with her irresistible loveliness. Auerbach was required to read to her to start his training, but she told him,
"I had better send you to my husband. He is better for men."
so my illusion to be taught by Helene Richards vanished. But what stayed to this day for more than 60 years and will stay on longer to our last breath, is the friendship of our lives.
Indeed, it was Riechers who recommended he join E. Drenker and Co. as a theatre agent, and he wrote,
I have to thank Helena for an occupation that it was my pleasure to work in for more than 30 years. My life's work and my undeniable love belonged and belong to the actors of Germany, and this is why I belong here with every last fiber of my heart.
Auerbach then said, I will close with this link to Germany with the everlasting Heinrich Heine.
About 20 years from Grecia, Greece, I have been exiled, expelled, but my heart is in Grecia, Greece. In Grecia, Greece, it stayed. Berthold Auerbach.
I would like to end this talk with a clip featuring Lucy Mannheim. She also fled to England in 1939. Mannheim was Auerbach's friend, and while he was ready to see the phoenix of Germany rise, she expresses rage, which is a fitting end to this study of Berthold Auerbach.
Julia, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure everybody here will agree that you have portrayed his life, his difficulties, and so many German and Austrian authors also who suffered, who were famous, but became people that were not known, except in limited circles. But you've also placed everything within a political and social context, which I think everybody here can relate to and appreciate. So I think what you've done is a real achievement, and I wish you lots of luck with the rest of your research. And being here is very special, I think.
Just for me.
Yeah, indeed. Are there any questions, please, that you would like to ask? And also, those who are watching online. And I want to thank you very much indeed. You've enhanced what Julia has written and spoken about. It's appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, do you have any questions, please? Please do.
I have a couple of little ones, if that's okay. Firstly, just out of interest, what's your plan with this project as a whole? Is it going to be published, shown? How are you intending on, I suppose?
Well, I'm saying what you're saying. Can you speak
What
loud?
you're going to do with this?
What am I going to do with it?
What are you going to do with it? I suppose some little questions. The archive is here, yes. How did it get here? Was it donated by Auerbach himself, his family? Was it curated? Because you said interestingly, there's no, I presume there's not much personal things in there. Then you're saying that there's no photographs of it.
Answer that. That's the archivist.
Yeah.
Donated by his daughter Hilda.
Yeah. And was it curated in a sense, in some way?
There wasn't.
Prior to.
It's not a large archive. It's one box.
Can you all hear?
Yes, I can hear. Sorry, yeah.
Some of it went to his son's children in East Germany. His son had lived in East Germany, so there was less contact of the war. But then when the war came down, some of his archive went to his relatives in East Germany.
And have you tried to contact the family's Germany to see if there's any material there, either of you, I suppose?
We are in contact with the family, yes.
What am I going to do with it? I'd like to research more. It's given me an appetite, I have to say. It made me realize how much I don't know, and how many people who are of great importance who the names didn't really resound to me, and I think that's my loss. I need to find out more. It's given me a hunger to discover more. Where that will go, I don't know.
We will all be interested, I think, in learning where you're going
Yes.
later.
Yes.
I
won't respect. You had a question?
Yeah. There you go, you're the next.
You can go first.
Okay. How did Auerbach relate to the very small scale theatre that was at the left hand and at the Freideutsche Bühne, the Freideutsche Kulturbund, this sort of thing? When you used to such big productions, and these were tiny productions. Did he ever speak about it?
In a way, I pull that out of the writings. When you make a stage production, there are an enormous number of people involved before you even get to a stage. And I think that's where he was probably very important in the pre-production, finding the writers who were just coming to people's lips and being sought out, taking those names, bringing the scripts to be read, perhaps in salons or semi-stage productions, inviting important theatre directors to come, the theatre director saying, yes, that is important, can we do it, how will it happen, money being found. I mean, part of the research might be, how was funding happening? Was it in the German theatre that I know about, which was state-funded, in which case there was money for big casts. Hauptmann's plays, for example, are very big casts. I think he was the person who goes to the director and says, you've got to see this and read this script and think about it. And that person is very important. Doesn't really have a name. It's a dramaturg, it's a backroom boy. He was also a theatre agent, as we know. So I think he crossed over many disciplines. And we don't really have a word for that job.
Mm-hmm.
So although these were big productions, but he might have been the person who drip fed the first idea, and I think that's why he's very important. And those people go unacknowledged, and they're not egotistical. They don't put themselves center stage. So it's really hard as an archivist and as someone researching to what exactly did he do? Because he never boasted about his work. But it's only through other people's recollections and the letters of people supporting him that we get a sense. So for me, that was hard as a researcher. How do I find out what he did? It's really hard to pull the threads together. Does that answer your question?
Not quite.
Not quite. Carry on.
I wondered whether he ever came into contact with refugee theatre here in Britain.
I looked for that and I didn't see any. And I think that's because he was in Godalming and Bath and not in the refugee theatre, I think was mainly in London.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
People like René Godard, Peter Zadek, the next generations who spoke English better were doing that, and therefore could be the conduit into British society and getting audiences who were not German Jews, but perhaps were Jews from Eastern Europe who might be very interested. I think he was paralysed by the lack of English. That's my reading of it.
Mm-hmm. He was here for years in the end.
For years, yeah.
He never learned English.
According to the author's friend, it seems not.
That's not unusual. I don't think of people I've known as refugees who really didn't speak much English at all. They could go to the shop, but that was about all. In terms of correspondence, anything serious that they had to deal with, go to the doctor, they found a German-speaking doctor or Polish or Czech or whatever.
The daughter obviously did all that work of administration because she lived with them and that's why they were with her and isolated from London. So she must have been translating all the time for the parents. Is that how you read it, Kat?
Sorry.
The daughter was doing all
Yes, I think the daughter was the conduit, yeah.
She was a school teacher. She had work and money.
I mean, language is essential in such communicating work.
Yeah.
You couldn't manage without it, could you?
No.
So to the crossover of language and English language drama would be not
It
impossible.
didn't happen.
No.
They seem to be in separate silos,
Yeah.
German theatre and British theatre.
Yeah.
And that was my research delight, in fact, to find that. how backward Britain was in terms of its own new theatre. And yet it was self-congratulating. Yes, in terms of women, the presentation of women.
On our spot. Yes.
Do you think it will ever come to love, cherish Wedekind?
Do I think it will ever?
Do you think English theatre will ever come to cherish Wedekind?
I think there've been a lot of musicals about Spring Awakening, and students. I've seen student productions of Spring Awakening. I think it appeals to very young people, but often transformed into a contemporary musical scene.
Okay.
Doubt that it would be commercial West End, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Certainly, why not? Yeah. It's a lot of people, though, isn't it? It's a lot of. It's a big cast, so therefore it costs a lot. Why not? The producers is making money, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. And that's also part of that wave of German theatre that is there.
That you had a question.
Two, in fact.
Oh, that's fine.
So the first was just you were talking about Mephisto by Mann, right? And Bertkin, I don't know what's the name of the.
Svabo, the 1981 Mephisto, or the more now, 1915.
And I don't know. No, I was with Klaus Mann and Klaus Mann.
Oh yeah, that's 821.
And I don't know, remember the fictional character, but I always thought that he was modeled after of Gründgens, and you said he was modeled after Jenny?
No,
Or did I just?
it's that name that you just said.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jannings played Mephisto in the earlier version, but the one in 1981 is said to be inspired by Jannings' betrayal of his left-wing past.
Okay.
So I was just trying to see the threads that connected.
Yeah, I think I just missed that spot. The other question is because the person that I'm studying who went to Greece and so on, she also started writing dramas in the 1920s in Berlin. And those were published at Österheld, which I believe was a publishing house that was relatively.
What's the name of the author?
Inge Westphal, but she published then under a different name that was von Holzendorf. Yeah. So, but she published at Österheld, and I don't know exactly, but I believe it was a publishing house that was of importance for the theater scene in Berlin at the time, in the 1920s. Did you come across that name
No.
anywhere?
No. Was it for theatre or for novels?
It was a publishing house for dramas, but not exclusively. There was some other stuff published as well, but it was relatively short-lived. I mean, with the first one.
Are there any more questions from those who are viewing from outside the university? Anyone attending but externally who would like to ask a question?
Someone who said, I can't express how important this is, words to that effect.
Yeah.
And for me too, I have to say personally, I found this very affecting. My family were not German Jews, they were East European Jews. But my mother's sister married a German Jew, and I've been doing a lot of research into German Jewry. So I feel loss and sadness and kind of mission to talk about it.
Yes, no, that's understandable.
Yeah.
That's understandable. And it was sad. I felt sad at times listening because of the anti-Semitism, the attitude towards German speakers. It's all part and parcel of making one feel either welcome or very unwelcome. And therefore a hindrance to one's, perhaps, to one's artistic productivity.
Well, today the censorship about Jewish work is going to be very hard. So researching this, writing this, thinking about presenting it, obviously no time is the same as any other time, but I'm a Jewish playwright and a lot of my work is about Jewish history. And I'm finding being ghosted at the moment by people I've worked with for years. and it's clearly because of what's happening outside. So there are resonances for me. So it has a double level.
Do you have any questions or comments that you would like to make?
I don't have any questions. No, for me, it was a fascinating journey to go on with this, and to a very interesting glance into that period of time and into the difference between German theatre and British theatre, because I work in both countries, and I work in theatre in both countries, and sort of grew up with both of those approaches, and I found that very insightful and very, very interesting to sort of take on my journey as an actor, and to better understand where all of that came from. And I found it particularly funny, but we were talking about this over lunch with Look Back in Anger, which was hailed as this groundbreaking thing, and if you compare it to the tonality and the what was happening before that with Wiedekind, it's such a huge difference. And I think that texture and that particular flavor of German theatre is something that's very palpable in this work. Very yeah, it's a huge difference, and it's been really interesting to sort of go on that journey with Julia.
Do you think you've benefited from it also?
I've learned something. I think that is always a benefit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was interested too in what you were saying about the Ibsen plays. And then of late, there's been a whole revival in Ibsen plays, hasn't there? Yes.
No Wiedekind plays.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Yes.
We were talking about actors training today, that very few of them learn about German theatre or styles of playing. Wanted Ryan to perform to show the style and the theatricality of the expressionist work. But British students in drama schools don't learn this. It's as if it's been made invisible, and that's really disturbing. It's a skill, and it's very important that this practice be known, but it's not known. It's still blanked out.
Is there anything you can do to approach a remedy to that, to counterbalance it?
When I work with actors, I often school them in it, and when I've worked with French actors, they get it. It's the British naturalism, which is of the 1950s, which is still very strongly loaded against this crazy, wild expressionism.
Yeah, it seems to be very much the taste as well that people that desire for naturalism, and in a way that it's presented as that is what an actor has to do. That is your job. This is the only way. This is the only style. And as soon as you sort of go against that, then it's, oh, that's way too much what you're doing there. And, oh, why are you doing this? And I think that's it's a great shame, because but you're right. Yeah, French actors are very, sort of have a very natural understanding of this. And
do you think it's an emotional thing too, that different temperaments and Stanislavski method and this sort of thing?
I think it's cultural.
Yes,
absolutely. In France, when I worked with French actors, and I tried to explain it, they looked at me blankly. And then when I said Charlie Chaplin, they immediately got it. And Brecht was a great admirer of Chaplin. So all these parallels are what interest me very much.
Yes, I found that fascinating, the intricacies of the interrelationships, or where they didn't work. Yes.
And I find it interesting when you see modern performers so for example, Christoph Waltz, when you see his screen performances, to me, they're always loaded with with that very particular German energy, which is not just about naturalism and about perfectly fitting into Netflix or whatever, but he brings, in an adapted form, in a sort of commercially viable Hollywood-esque form, he brings that sort of energy and that particular style in his performance. And I find things like that very interesting, like that it's rooted in something different, but he's sort of found a way to bring that to the screen in this case. Love to see him on stage. Right.
Yes, please.
I don't have a question really, but just a comment. I thought it was great talk by both of you, as it were. I was fascinated by the absence of photograph. That it seems so odd that there wouldn't be any record of it, especially if you have access to family archives. So, do you have any idea about?
We pull our hair out about this quite a lot. And then made a virtue of it, but maybe in some government office when he was applying for naturalization, there would be.
Yeah, I was thinking if when he came to Britain, there might have been some.
There must have been. I got in touch with the internment camps in the Isle of Man. Nothing. I'll find him. Some records got lost. We don't know.
Oh no, Isle of Man records. They have some of the females, but most of the male records were either destroyed, damaged, lost. We've been there.
Been there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a great loss.
Yes.
That is a great loss.
We might still find some. If
We may still find. I don't know where to look. We've tried every official.
if the families in Germany.
Maybe just Germany. I tried the church where he was buried. Nothing.
It's really surprising.
Yes.
I also was struck by that.
Yes.
And I think you did it brilliantly. You took more attention to that, and it made it intriguing
Yes.
as well. But it is surprising.
And I suppose it's about invisibility. The whole research is about why are these people invisible when they are so important.
But he would have had a registration card.
But did they have photos?
Yeah. Yes.
But also, I think your point about the isolation because he was in Bristol. If you compare it with the emigrés in Hollywood, that there's a community.
Yeah.
And then even if those who don't speak German, they have friends who do and so on. There he was on his own.
I think the problem was he wasn't in London. Obviously, for economic reasons, he was with the daughter in Bath.
But you said he was ghosted. Do you think he was ghosted or he isolated himself?
It was a terrible time to come as a German.
Yeah.
He was an enemy alien. He probably knew very few people in England, or they came over in similar hard circumstances, and the daughter did everything. I should imagine, he was old when he came, and the daughter was facilitating his life here. And it would take time to get over the trauma of so much loss. How many years? The war was still going on. It was in 1939. Beginning of the war. I guess you're lying low and you're just trying to keep going. And you're not in London where there was. They were meeting in Cosmo Cafe in Finchley Road till the 80s, I think, or 70s. Yeah, 80s. So there wasn't this coffee culture.
Are there any more observations or comments that anyone would like to make, please? Any more questions?
Actually, I just have one small question. Sorry. I was fascinated by the singer you showed at the end. I missed. What was the connection with Auerbach?
She was a friend of his, Lucy Mannheim. She was an actress who he knew in Germany, and she also came to England. But she had a career. She worked with Hitchcock as an actress. She was married to the actor Marius Goring, who wrote the words for that, in fact. So as an actress, she did have a career. I think she must have been younger than him as well.
That film is obviously on YouTube, but do you know who made it? What was the context for that?
I know that Marius Goring wrote the words, and he was a well-known actor, so they must have just hired a studio and filmed it, and it's ended up on YouTube, as far as I know, because it's 1944, so she's showing Stalingrad, I think. And I wanted to use that because it subverts the romanticism of that, and then it shows that the theatre technique that he was part of. How do we get that? I mean, I wanted Ryan to come in and show it, and then I found at the last minute this clip, and I think that shows it that in its resistance and its fury, and
Because the emotion was very strong.
Yeah.
Came across.
Yes.
Clearly. She didn't.
she wasn't acting a role. It was coming from being exiled and being thrown out of her identity and her culture and her language.
Yeah. Well, in that case, thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure and extremely interesting. And the threads, so many threads to follow.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.